Hi, my name is Tern Briggs, and on the Watchdog project, I was responsible for the database, the central node server with its accompanying API, and in general, integrating all of the various components of the Watchdog ecosystem to work and communicate effectively with each other. I also managed the packaging and Dockerization of our releases for easy deployment.
Hello, I'm Gunnar Hovik and I was responsible for the Watchdog Linux endpoint.
Hello, my name is Philip Gonzalez, and I was responsible for the Watchdog analysis engine as well as the Windows endpoint.
Hello everyone, my name is Malik and I was responsible for Watchdog's user interface.
To introduce the Watchdog system, I want to take a moment to walk through the problems and the core philosophies that informed our design of the project. Unfortunately, we live in a world where any device that even touches the internet is a potential target. Never before has digital security been more important than it is now, and yet it is still so common that individuals and businesses don't make it a high priority. Now, there's a number of reasons for this. For example, I run a home server with numerous services such as media streaming, NAS, and a mail server that are accessible to the internet. I want to be able to access my stuff from wherever I may be around the globe. However, that also means that I am potentially exposed to bad actors from anywhere around the globe. And yeah, I know this. I'm a security minded person. And yet, even still, it is hard to be motivated to constantly be diligent, like checking logs, verifying processes, especially when I've given out access to a number of friends and family. It's not just me using these services. And so, auditing all of this would just take a lot of diligence on my part, because that's what security really requires. It requires diligence, and diligence requires time and knowledge. And these are two things that you just cannot guarantee that every person with any network will be able to have or hire. And so with the Watchdog project, we wanted to provide a solution that can strengthen any user's security posture by reducing the time and knowledge required to identify potential problems as they occur. Now, if you're a larger business, there's already a number of solutions available in the state at enterprise level, and they come with enterprise premiums. Or they might require highly competent technical professionals in order to set up, configure, and constantly manage. Again, these things that are just beyond the scope of many small businesses, and especially me as just a home network enthusiast. And so, with Watchdog, we wanted to provide a simple, effective, flexible, and free and open source solution to really solve one core thing, is that users need to know when something requires deeper attention. Something is potentially wrong. And so whatever we can do to scale things back and reduce the friction towards users getting to know that something needs to be looked at either by them or by someone with more experience. And so that was kind of the core idea and problem we wanted to solve with the Watchdog system. And so now I'm going to turn it over to Gunnar to walk through the system and how it solves these problems.
Thanks, Tern, for giving that introduction and background to our project. I'll now walk you through what the basic user experience might be while using the software. Upon login, the user will be greeted by the dashboard page. This is where any security events that have been generated will be displayed. This is where the inexperienced user should spend most of their time, as all they care about is what's going on with their systems. As you can see, we have no security events. That's due to the fact that we have no endpoints. The first step should be to register an endpoint. We can do that by going to the admin page. As you can see here, our endpoint list is empty, but we can register a new one. So let's register a new endpoint called a Linux endpoint 1. Upon running the configuration wizard on the endpoint, you'll be given this information to put in here. I will just fill it in for my currently running endpoint and click Add New Endpoint. And as you can see, it has successfully registered our endpoint. Now that our endpoint has been registered, hopefully important data should be flowing in. We can use the Heuristic Explorer to explore this data in depth. As you can see here, we are indeed receiving data from our newly registered endpoint. At the top, we can cycle between the two kinds of graphable data, network and process data. This contains both a graphical and tabular format if you wish to dive into the deeper specifics of what the data is. You can also toggle these items on and off, and if we had multiple endpoints, you could turn on and off the display for individual endpoints. If we return to the dashboard, you can see that we still lack any security events. This is due to the fact that our endpoint is operating normally. However, in order to force a security event, we can explore our next feature, which is registering events in the admin panel. Here you can click Add Alerts, and you'll be able to add custom alerts. Let's go ahead and register a bandwidth limit alert. Let's say that we're managing a network and we don't want anybody to access a specific site. We can go ahead and select a severity level. We could consider this high. The severity level only matters for what is displayed on the dashboard as well as which events will generate email notifications. We'll then select our device, add a description, add a target host. Let's say we don't want anybody to access this specific host for any amount of bytes in any amount of time. And we'll go ahead and add the alert. As you can see, it gets added here to the created alerts. I'll now initiate a ping for this banned IP, and we can return later to see if we've generated any events due to this. While we wait for that ping to hopefully generate an event alert, let's talk about the other thing on this admin page, the API keys. We offer integration with Abuse IPDB and VirusTotal, and the user can come in here and enter either of their keys. Upon doing so, it'll go through a validation process, and it will start to use those in the system scan to mark dangerous IPs that get access. If we return to the dashboard, we can see that we have indeed generated an unacknowledged event for that banned content we saw before. This will give us an opportunity to talk about our event management flow. When an event first gets generated, it gets placed in the unacknowledged events. These are things that are new and have not been noticed by any user. Once the user has seen this, they can acknowledge it to move it down to the acknowledged event section. This means they know that there's an issue and they're currently doing something about it. Once they do something about it or get somebody who knows what they're doing to do something about it, they can resolve it. This will require a message. We will just say resolved. At this point, it will be placed down into the resolved events to keep a log of all events for future use. That concludes the brief overview of using the Watchdog system. I'll now pass the time over to Phil to talk a little bit more in depth about the systems that allow this to be possible.
Thanks, Gunnar. I will now talk about our system capabilities as well as the implementation. As you saw in the demo, we try to abstract as much of the process to the background to make it very easy for users to just get the information they need when they need it. In the background, there is a lot going on to make Watchdog possible. Firstly, the data is collected from the endpoints. Things such as network info, process info, and login info are all collected and then stored for analysis. This data is then used by the heuristic analysis engine to be checked for suspicious actions and will create an alert if it deems potentially malicious data or data that the users may want to know about. The alert that is created is what was shown previously by Gunnar on the UI dashboard, which lets the user know of potentially important information. The analysis engine also contains integrations to reputable external APIs such as Abuse IPDB and VirusTotal to get crowdsourced information on potentially malicious network connections. Here's the overview of our system architecture. Like what was mentioned before, the data is pipelined from the endpoints through the analysis engine and then displayed to the UI for events when needed. Another feature of Watchdog is that a user can configure a mail server to be notified by email when critical events occur that require their attention. Moving on to the summary of the technologies and languages we use to build Watchdog. The endpoints were written in C for Linux and C# for Windows. The data collection and analysis, MariaDB was our database, and Rust was used for the analysis engine, as well as Node for the backend server. Since Watchdog was meant for local network monitoring, we packaged it with Docker for easy containerized deployment. And lastly, React was used for the front end, and Postman was used to test our API routes. To cover some broad areas of our software development process, through the development we made 400 commits to our repository across different repositories, as well as closed 101 issues. I will now hand it over to Malik to talk about user feedback.
For the user studies, instead of gathering extensive feedback from a wide audience, we focus deeply on insights from small business tech workers and home server enthusiasts. The small business users provided helpful input about integrating Watchdog with existing business setups. Meanwhile, home server users gave a more broad range of perspectives, from the complexities of different setups to giving suggestions on improving the web interface. Each greatly helped us improve Watchdog. Most of the feedback we received indicated difficulty during the setup and configuration phase. In particular, users expressed it was quite cumbersome to add endpoints to their system, and that is why we decided to add the endpoint registration page, which you can see on the right. This helped streamline the process of registering endpoints and made it much easier for a user to add an endpoint to their system. And so that is Watchdog. We thank you for watching.